Hi guys! Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for stopping by to hang out with me today. And if this is your first time here on my channel, hi, I'm Maria and I'm so glad that you're joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's video and that you'll subscribe down below before you leave and hit the little notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future uploads. So if you watched my previous video, which was my Sephora VIB sale haul from this spring, you'll know that I picked up this little guy at the sale and I have been dying to play around with this. This is the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette and it looks like this on the inside. I have just been dying to play around with these green shades. Personally, I feel like there are some green shades on the market, but nothing that is quite like this. I like that this entire palette is pretty much green based, which I think is very unique, and I just can't wait to create a fun look today using these shadows. For today's video, I will definitely be doing a more fun out there look using these green shadows just to play around with it and create something really different using this palette, but I will definitely do another video using this palette to create more of a wearable look, maybe something that has some neutrals in the crease that I would pull from another palette and then just use some of these green shimmer shades on the lid. But today is definitely going to be a fun, unique makeup look and I hope you guys enjoy. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention two other products that I picked up at the Sephora VIB sale that I didn't have whenever I filmed my previous VIB sale haul, and those two products are this Laneige Lip Glowy Balm, I believe that's what it's called, and I got the pear scent and it smells amazing. Personally, I know a lot of people that don't really like pears or the scent of pears, but I am obsessed with pears. I love eating them, I love the way that they smell, I love everything about them, so I just really wanted to pick this one up, and I like that this one is completely clear. It doesn't have a tint, whereas I know the berry one does, and the other ones might, I'm not quite sure. But I love that this one is clear just as something a little different, and I can throw it on top of other things that I have on my lips or just wear it alone, and it's a little bit different than everything else that I have in my collection. And I also picked up this Bite Beauty Amuse Bouche Liquefied Lipstick, and this is basically just a liquid lipstick, and I got mine in the shade Puree, which is this beautiful orange brown color. I can't wait to wear this in the fall. This is what it looks like on the inside, just as a close-up. I think this will be so beautiful in the fall time, but I'll probably still end up wearing it before that because I do really love shades like this. So those are the only two products that weren't in my previous Sephora VIB sale haul. I just thought that I would mention them. They are featured on my Instagram, so if you are following me on my Instagram, you will definitely have seen those already. But I just thought that I would mention them in here in case you guys aren't following me on Instagram. If you aren't, I would highly suggest that you do. I'll have it linked down below, and if you haven't seen my first Sephora VIB sale haul yet, make sure you check that video out. So that is everything that I had to mention before we get started on today's look, so let's just jump into it. So I already have the rest of my face makeup on just because I wanted to really focus on the eyes today, but I'm sure there'll be many videos in the future that I show you me applying my face makeup, so don't get too discouraged that you're not seeing that in this video. Also, sorry about this tan line, I just got it today. If it's bothering some of you, I really apologize. So my eyes are already primed with the Smashbox 24-Hour Photo Finish Shadow Primer. I really love this stuff and would highly recommend it. And then since this Huda Beauty palette doesn't have a shade to set my eyelids with, I am going to hop into another palette. I know that a lot of people don't do this, I know a lot of people do this, but personally I just feel like setting my eyelids gives a smoother base, and while I know that the Smashbox primer is tacky and that's for a reason so that the shadow hangs on to it, I just love working with a smooth base, which is why I decide to set my eyelids. And to do that, I'm just going to hop into this Anastasia palette and use this shade Fresh to set my eyelids. This is the Anastasia Sultry palette, by the way. And I'm just taking this Fresh shade on the Eco Tools Controlled Setting Brush just to smooth things out first. And obviously this does not have to be precise at all because we're just tossing that into our lids. So first I am going to hop into this shade right here. It is this mint shade in the palette. Sorry these don't have any names, but I will point to all of them that I'm using so that you can have a reference. So I'm just going to hop into that mint colored shade and tap off all of the excess so that it is not too pigmented on our eyes. And this is a Farrah 35E brush. I got this from my Ipsy bag. I'm not quite sure where they sell these brushes, but you do get them a lot if you are subscribed to Ipsy. And I'm just going to pop this right in my crease just to give us a nice green base to work with. The shade isn't too pigmented, at least from what I can tell, which I wasn't really expecting it to be too pigmented because it is a really light shade, and it's not too big of a deal because we're just using this as kind of a transitioned blending shade. Kind of need to add a bunch of this to work it up to the color that I want to get us started here. Okay, so that first shade is down in the crease. It's not too pigmented, but it shouldn't be a problem to do the rest of the eye look. All right, next we're getting into the fun stuff. So I am going to take this deeper green shade right here on this It Cosmetics Dazzling Crease Brush. This one is actually from like a holiday gift set, so I'm not sure if it's still available, but I'm sure you can find something similar to it. I really love the It Cosmetics brushes. I think they are so soft. So I'm just gonna put this right on top of that shade that I already had in the crease, and I am tapping a lot of this excess off just because I don't want it to be too pigmented right off the bat. I would like to work up to the green color that I want, so that way I don't mess up right away and make it too pigmented. But this shade is just going right over top of the other one, and I am going to drag it out a little bit so that way we create a little bit more shape and dimension with this shade. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to pop it in this outer corner too, to kind of give us this nice green V on the outer lid. Alright, that is looking pretty green to me, but I do want to get it up a little bit more. So I'm just going to keep building this shadow up, still doing the same thing, just lightly blending it and buffing it into the outer corner and into the crease. And it's okay if it gets on like this inner corner part, because we are going to be putting a shadow over top of that after we're done working with this one. So it's okay to be a little bit messy. It'll still come together at the end. So far my thoughts on this palette are that the shades are blending beautifully, but the pigmentation isn't quite where I wanted it to be to do this bold green eye look. Obviously, these shades are pretty green and you can tell that, but it's not like really bold and in your face like how I was expecting. And the pigmentation problem could just be the nature of green shades themselves. I haven't really had like amazing experiences with green shadows. They might be difficult to make. I don't know. I've never made eyeshadow. That's just kind of an intuition that I have about green shadows. But I'm sure that after a lot of building, we can get this green up to the point that we want it to be. So I did drag this shadow out pretty far on my outer corners, so that way whenever we do the lower lash line, the shades blend pretty seamlessly together. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on my other eye, and then I'll be right back to check in with you guys. Alright, so I'm back. I just blended this green shade here into the crease and outer corner of my other eye like I did on this eye. And so far, like I said, the shades are blending pretty well. It's just that they're pulling a little bit more like a seafoam green than emerald green. I was expecting it to be a little bit more of an emerald color, judging by the color that it is in the pan, but it is turning out a little bit of a seafoam green, which still looks really pretty, I feel like, but not what I was expecting. So we are going to jump into that green shade again a little bit later on in the eye look, but as for right now, we are going to take this green shade right down here and pop that on the inner parts of our lid. So I'm just going to take this double-sided Luxie Beauty eyeshadow brush to jump into that green shimmer shade. This doesn't have any name on it anymore because it's rubbed off from me holding it so much, but I did also get this in my Ipsy bag. I love the Luxie Beauty brushes so much. I think they're so soft and glorious to use on the eyelid. So I am just dipping into that green shade at the bottom here to put as a base on my lid. So I'm just going to pop that on the inner part of my eyelid. Yeah, I am liking how this one's looking. I'm going to pop back into that shade just to get it a little more pigmented and just toss that on the shadow that we already put down. Yeah, this is a really pretty green to work with. It kind of blended out the other shadows nicely. I am going to pop some other stuff on top of that later on, but I think this gave us a pretty nice green base to work with on our eyelid. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other eye and be right back. Alright, so now that this green shade here is on both lids, I am just going to take the other end of this brush that is a little bit more of a fluffy, dense side and just tap back into this green shade and pop it on the outer corners again just to blend out what we already put down and make it a little bit more seamless. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other eye as well. Kind of take that up into the crease like we did before. Alright, now I kind of want a little bit of something deeper on top of that on the lid before we finish off this eye look. So I'm just going to take this middle shade, and it looks like it has the most shimmer out of all of the green shades in this palette. So I am excited to jump into that. So yeah, I am going to take the flat side of this Luxie Beauty brush and just dip that into this shade here. And then I am going to pop this on the lids over what we already put down on them. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other lid and just pat this onto my lid with this flat shader brush. So again, I'm just going to take the fluffy side of this brush and dip back into this green shade and pop it into the outer corners again, just so that we are blending everything out and making it look seamless as always. Okay, now so I'm going to jump back in with this really large fluffy Farrah brush, and I'm going to kind of mix these two shades here and just tap off a lot of the excess and blend this into the crease again, just so that we blend everything together and it looks a little bit more finished than before. So I am going to do the same thing on the other eye and just blend this into the crease, taking it up a little bit higher and dragging it out into the outer corner so that everything is blended together. And then, yet again, we are just going to pop into this middle shade of the palette here just to apply anything that we might have blended out when doing that last step. Okay, so now that we have everything on the upper portion of our eyes, we're going to go ahead and jump into the lower lash line. So for the lower lash line, I'm going to take this Luxie Beauty 207 medium angled shader brush, and I'm first going to pop into the lightest shade that we used here in this palette and just buff that onto my lower lash line. This doesn't have to be too precise because again, it is a really light shade, so you can kind of drag it down as far as you want. So with these lighter shades, I do like to drag them down a little bit lower just because it doesn't look as crazy as dragging a dark shade down does, and it kind of gives a nice base to blend dark shades onto afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and put this light shade on the other lower lash line as well. And when doing this too, I like to take this brush and go a little bit past my lower lash line, so that way I grab this shadow that's on my outer corner and just blend it so that we create this nice V on the outside. And I will go in and do the same on the other eye. Alright, and then next I'm going to take this IT Cosmetics Luminous Smudger Brush. It's just this small, dense smudger brush. I really like this for applying deeper shades onto my lower lash line, kind of closer to my waterline. So I'm just going to dip into this deeper green shade here that we used a lot in the crease and just tap off some of that excess and kind of just pat that onto the lower lash line. Not necessarily buffing it out right now, but just kind of applying that shade close to our waterline to give us almost a eyeliner effect. Okay, so after the deeper shade is just pressed onto the lower lash line, I like to go back in with this brush and just buff it out a little bit to make it not have as many harsh lines as it did by just patting it on. And then after doing that, yet again, we are going to go back into this deeper shade and just touch up the outer corners. Just lightly pat that on just to give it some pigmentation without blending out too much of what we already did. And do the same on the other side as well. And then lastly, I am going to hop into this beautiful greenish gold shade that is in the corner of this palette. And with this shade, I'm just going to take it on this Glamour Dolls brush. It's kind of just a tapered, blending brush. I like to use this brush a lot to do my inner corners and my brow bone highlight. So I'm just going to pop into this shade with this brush, roll it around in there, and pop this onto the inner corners. So we're going to build this shade up to be a really, really bright, intense inner corner. I just think that this makeup look calls for that, and I am such a fan of bright inner corners. Alright, and then after that shade is applied onto our inner corners, I am just going to take this shade, because it is so beautiful in this greenish gold, and kind of drag it up onto the very, very inner parts of our lid as well. I'm going to do the same here on this eye, just buffing it up about a quarter of the way onto the lid to blend those shimmer shadows. And then I'm also going to take that shade and pop it on my brow bone as well. I typically just stick with like a silver brow bone, but I do really, really love this shade, and I think it looks really nice with the green look that we have going on here. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and apply my mascara off camera, and then I'll be right back to give you guys the finished look and my final thoughts. So while off camera, I did apply my mascara. It is all done. I used the Lancome Monster Big Mascara. I'm sure if you watched my VIB So haul, you heard me rave about this product. And I also applied a little bit more lipstick as well. I used the ColourPop Lippy Stick in Brink. It is just this beautiful mauve pink color. I think it looks so good with the green eyes that we have going on today. So yeah, guys, this is the finished makeup look. I really, really like how it turned out today. As for my thoughts on this Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette, I do think that it performed pretty well. There's only a little bit of patchiness here in this crease, but honestly, that is normal for me. I don't really know what is wrong with my crease on this eye, but that always happens with so many different shadows. So it's not anything against the eyeshadow. I do think the color that the shadows ended up being is really, really pretty. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting the shade to be a little bit more emerald based, but it did turn out a little bit seafoam and a little bit of a brighter green than what I was expecting. I would have liked if it was a little bit deeper, but I do think it turned out pretty on the lids. Honestly, I think my favorite shade that we used today is this green gold one here that we added at the end. I just think that it gave a nice pop to the eyes that they were really lacking before that, and I really love how it blended onto the lid a little bit here just to give that seamless shimmer look that I really wanted to get out of this. So that is all for today's fun look using this Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette. So thank you guys so much for stopping in to today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll subscribe down below before you leave so that you can stay connected with me on here, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future uploads. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you are inspired to do your own green makeup look, make sure you tag me on Instagram, and if you're not already following me on Instagram, make sure you give me a follow on there so that you can stay connected with me on a daily basis, because I do post on there pretty frequently, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye!